The opinions expressed in this program are not those of CISA 7 or Time Warner Cable.
What's your tomorrow?
I'd like to call the board meeting to order. I know I'm not on. I'd like to call the board meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mission statement. Next, I'd ask Katie to read our mission statement.
We educate all students to be college, career, and community ready, inspired to succeed in a diverse world.
Thank you, Katie. Next is our open forum. This is a time for members of the community to speak before the board. I have 2 forms filled out, so I'm going to call them up in the order I received them, except Sandy, is this the order? Who was first?
Lori's going to be first.
She was, okay. So I'll call Lori Cathy up first.
Lori Cathy, N4606 County Road F, Bonduel. Again, I am the president of the Green Bay Education Association, and I'm so excited to be here tonight for this vote to expand the CEP program in Green Bay. I had an amazing meeting last week with Lynette Zalek, right? She's smiling. Where we talked about a lot about the things that you all had questions on, actually, about the equipment that's going to be needed and how the Hunger Task Force will help with that. So with me, I have Maureen Fitzgerald from the Hunger Task Force, and she's just going to say a little bit.
Welcome.
Thank you. We are so excited for this vote this evening, and we're very happy to help in any way we can. So Hunger Task Force is an anti-hunger public policy agency and a food bank. We're located in Milwaukee, but we do work all over Wisconsin, and we've helped districts all across the state implement and apply for CEP. So we're excited that that's something that hopefully is going to expand in Green Bay. We also have a grant through the Social Innovation Fund. So Hunger Task Force was chosen as one of 6 organizations across the country. And one thing we use that grant for is to help school districts if they have capacity issues around serving children either breakfast, lunch, or after school meals. So I'm happy to speak more about that into the future, but we do have some funding that would be available for the district to provide capacity around serving kids meals.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I'll call Amanda Van Remortel.
Good evening. Amanda Van Remortel, 3108 Summer Place, Green Bay. I am a Howe Elementary School music teacher, but I'm also Vice President of the Green Bay Education Association. And I just came tonight to thank the school board and Green Bay Public Area School District for the direction you'll take tonight to enroll 12 of the schools into the Community Eligibility Provision Program. When I was at the board meeting last October and this was presented, I knew this was the best step for our district and what was best for kids. The Green Bay Education Association was informed by Hunger Task Force, and we enthusiastically support the move, which means that all students in these 12 schools will be served meals for breakfast and lunch. Students will be able to focus on learning with food in their bellies while also building lifelong healthy eating habits. Again, thank you to the school board and school district officials for working with the educators of Green Bay Education Association, the Hunger Task Force, and Green Bay Advocates for Education to reach this milestone. Together, we can feed students' minds and bodies and inspire them to succeed.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak before the board this evening? Seeing none, we will move on to our roll call. Sandy?
Becker?
Here.
Blackout?
Here.
Dorf?
Here.
Jansch?
Excused?
Maloney?
Here.
Wagner?
Here.
Warren?
Here. We have 6 board members present today, 1 excused. Also, we're joined at the table by Dr. Michelle Langenfeld to my left, our superintendent, and Sandy Heller, our board executive assistant. I would entertain a motion for approval of the following minutes. We have regular board meeting, June 20th, 2016, special board meeting, July 11th, special board meetings, closed sessions, June 20th and July 11th.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Those minutes have been approved. We have no communications to be placed on file this month, and monitoring reports, we will hear from you next month. Is there anything you wanted to say?
Yes,
Mike?
just briefly, when last year when Celestine and I were co-chairing of this committee, we met with Mark Smith and we planned out the year. And then when Julie was elected to the board, she and I met with Mark, and we had planned to take a break in July and kind of look ahead. Now I think the next step is Julie and I will meet with, Kim is going to kind of facilitate the transition, but Kim and John and Julie and I will be meeting shortly to look ahead to the next school year for monitoring reports. So we do not have anything this evening unless anyone has any questions.
No? All right, thank you, Mike.
Okay.
Next we'll move to our superintendent's update. I'll turn that over to Dr. Langenfeld.
Thank you, Dr. Warren. If you look at the August calendar, we begin the first week of August. August 1st is our teaching and learning work session on our calendar, immediately followed by the organizational support work session. So it's a very early meeting in the month of August. And then August 15th is our regular board meeting. Both meetings begin at 5:30 and they begin in the boardroom. September 1st is coming up quickly. It is the first day of school for our students. And staff will be back and preparing. In fact, I would offer that our staff haven't left. I think our school in a second session of summer school started today, and talking with Mark Allen, the principal on special assignment who runs summer school, has been very robust. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
We're not.
Our microphones aren't done.
Well, are they?
We can't. There's nothing.
We can't hear anything. Have you heard anything that we've said?
Well, apparently we're
Yeah, I don't. They're not alive.
They're not on.
They're not on here.
Yeah. Lori's looking at it. There we go. Woo!
There you go. We're back.
just told to run the slides, not
No one said anything about the audio part. I understand. I feel your
I
pain.
don't have to repeat the calendar, but
Yeah, the calendar is posted, but I did want to mention the fact that summer school, the second session, began today, and the students will be back September 1st. But in reality, if you drive through the district, you can see that we don't close down in the summer. In fact, we embrace students in a variety of ways through a variety of enrichment opportunities. There are meals being served and robust programs occurring. So I want to extend my gratitude to all who are part of the summer programs and recognize that we are in an opportune place to continue to support our kids and transition them through the summer. I think sometimes that summer slide is of great concern to us, and to be able to provide robust programming that enriches a student's life and supports them is something that people don't often recognize, and I'm sure that there are many people out there who think that teachers and administrators and staff take the summers off, when in fact our schools are full. So thank you to all of you who continue to deliver services and support for students in their learning and play in the summer, and looking forward to a wonderful 16-17 school year. So that's that piece. As far as discussion items, just a brief overview of the facilities master planning, and I invite Mr. Sarno, our Chief Financial Officer, who is our project manager on this particular endeavor, to join us and just give us some highlights as to where we currently are to keep people apprised of how we're moving forward.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Langenfeld. Quick update. We have begun some community, I call them school community discussions. Last Thursday, we're at Martin Elementary to discuss Martin Elementary as it relates to the ELC and the project that was presented to bring those two schools together. Decent turnout. I think there's about 30 individuals. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be present, but I know Dr. Langenfeld, Mr. Stengel, and I apologize, I don't know if any of you were able to attend or not, but we had a mix of staff, a few community members, and parents from both schools represented. And so discussion there that took place. We do have one set up as well on this coming Thursday at 4 o'clock for JDL to discuss how they might be incorporated and have a presence as a standalone piece at Franklin Middle School, and then as well at 5 o'clock, or 5:30, excuse me, pretty tight timeline on Thursday, we'll be at Baird to discuss that potential project as well. So really it's gathering some information, hearing what some folks have to say, community members, parents, school members, and just kind of seeing what that is. So I know that Nick Kent, a representative from the architectural firm PRA, was there as well to gather information, Lori Blakesley. And so we will continue to gather information and be coming to you with some more information, more detailed information on August 1st, and then as well a discussion there, and then August 15th as well. So we do have a deadline that if we wished to proceed. Did you have something to add, Dr.?
Well, I was just going to share the process that is used, and what we used at Martin was an opportunity where there was some presentation, just discussion as to the whys around why we would be doing this and what kind of opportunities we would be affording our students and staff and community if we moved forward on these projects. But then there were questions where we would stop and have everyone write, because we wanted to gather information for the board. And we told them up front, this was for us to present to the board collectively so that board members would have a clear understanding of what parents and community and staff are saying. And actually, some had done some surveys of students as well. So, and just talked about how students will get engaged as we move forward. So just want you to know that we're really trying to keep track of, it isn't just a conversation, it's really stopping and asking questions and getting written feedback, knowing full well that we're not going to remember everything. So just have that available to the board.
Do you have any questions at all? Please.
I'm not quite following who's at these meetings. Was point being, was somebody from the curricular area with you at these meetings?
I don't think so. I think we had communications, and our whole piece around it was to just do a very high-level shared understanding of why a facilities master plan and what the footprint looks like, and talked about their needs. It was more about their needs and us listening and getting feedback. So,
John?
I was there.
Oh, John was there. I apologize. Yes.
I appreciate hearing that somebody from the curricular area was there. With all due respect, the business area should not be driving what our students need in terms of the schools and what we offer. It's
yes.
the curriculum,
Yes.
curricular area. So that's why it's important in my mind somebody be there.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
See you soon.
Okay.
I still can't hear anything you guys are saying.
Yeah, I wondered about that.
I can hear a little bit here, Dr. Rain,
Do we have volume on that?
That's where I turned it up.
Hello?
Tested.
Maybe someone who comes up should sit at one of these, if these are on, rather than there.
Well, they can't hear us either.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I hear it.
Well, that's because it's in my mouth.
Yeah, no, it's,
Well, you just keep it there. It's like that singer, you know? That's right.
Better than your foot.
That's right. It is better than my foot.
yeah, no, it's better. I can hear my,
I think as we move forward, if I could just offer, as we move forward with the facilities, I think that I understand your point. Dr. Wagner and I would offer that I too represent curriculum and instruction, so.
No, I wouldn't say you don't, but you're.
So, anyway. Anyway, if I could just share a quick success story, I'd like to do that. There are many successes going on right now, and I just wanted to take a few moments and share some exciting opportunities that were brought forward as a result of a lot of conversation over the last several years. As people are well aware, the East Institute for the Fine Arts has truly been an extraordinary endeavor for children beginning in kindergarten or through second grade at Webster and following through Washington and at East High School. But there's a new addition coming on the scene, which is a result of a lot of shared effort. We were fortunate to send 2 of our teachers to the National Mariachi Workshop for educators this in Las Vegas, and I think that the opportunity is really that we will be able to afford mariachi music for our students to engage in. And I think one of the things that in the note I received from the teacher, Jessie Mansky, she talked about the fact that mariachi has such a rich tradition and brings such pride to the families and honor as well. And so I talked with Kim Paulo, Associate Superintendent, responsible for that area of study, and she talked about the fact that the instruments, we have instruments and ensembles, and the program will start up through the fine arts, and I think as early as this fall is the intention around it as well. So as a co-curricular after-school group. So I'm excited for that. I know that there's a lot of families we'll bring in, and I'm really thinking that this is will be a really great opportunity for many of our families and students in so many different ways. So it's exciting. So that's my success story today. And I have no action items.
all right, thank you. Next, we'll move to our legal update. I'll ask Melissa to come forward.
Now, are those mics on?
Can you hear?
No. That one is,
Can you hear me?
yes. Oh, yes, we can hear you.
Good evening. Thank you, Board of Education. Prior to tonight's meeting, you were provided a memo regarding the work of district administration as well as you, the school board, on school board policies and where we are and where we're proposing to go from here. I noted in the memo to you that there are really 3 areas of policy, the work that still needs to be done on those policies that have not yet been converted from our number series, or, I'm sorry, from our letter series to our number series. Policies that need to be reviewed because they haven't been reviewed since they were adopted by the board largely in 2002. And then policies that will need to continue to come to the board that are affected by legislative changes or those policies that the board has not yet adopted, but the board may need to adopt because there may be a need for those policies that the district has not envisioned up to this point. I included a proposed plan to do so, as well as a schedule that the board could consider for revising and updating policies, so not as to overburden board meetings, but allow that work to continue.
Are there any questions? Chris?
I didn't pull a policy up, but I think he was 6, 700, and 800, or 7, 9, and 800 series? I don't know.
The series that still need to be converted, it's largely the, I'm sorry, now I'm getting feedback. It's largely the 600, 700, and 900 series that are yet to be converted, and I know Mr. Sarno and his staff are working hard on those, and they would be prepared to come to the board in January or early spring for the board to have a work session and look over those series and adopt those policies. Those series are not very large in comparison to the 300 or 400 series, but there is still some work that needs to be done in those areas.
Melissa, can you tell the public what those series are, just so they know what's in those series?
I'll try off the top of my head. I believe the 600 series is the financial support series. The 700 series is the support services, so that would be like our food services or our facilities. And then the 900 series would be the budgeting series, so fund balance, those sorts of things. Did I get it right? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And you feel one meeting with the board in January will suffice, or?
For those policies, the numbers that are left to be adopted, it would be a work session in a work session or a retreat format. And based on what we believe needs to come to the board, much like your other work on the series when you converted them from the letter series to the number series, we think we could get those done in one retreat. If not, we could schedule another one, but based on my conversation with Mr. Sarno, we thought we could do it in one retreat. And then those policies, after the board works on those policies, we would move to a regular board meeting where you would then vote on them and adopt them, much like you're doing currently. And then we would look to implement the review cycle coming this November with the 100 series.
Is that, do we like that idea? I mean, is everybody okay with the recommendation?
Yeah, I think that makes
sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so you'll start the review cycle in November.
We're going to start the review cycle in November.
We'll schedule a retreat sometime January, February? Okay. So somebody's going to have to remind us to do that. You'll put that on our agenda. Okay. So why don't we look at scheduling that? We'll put that on our November agenda and look ahead to January or February. And if you're going to be later than that, Andy, if you know, then we'll put it on the December schedule for February or something.
Yeah, and it won't be any later than that.
Okay. All right.
He's thinking very positively.
That works. That works. Yeah.
We're just skipping the holidays.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And our Intercity Student Council representative is not here today, so we'll move on to the Legislative Liaison Report, and I'll turn that over to Mike Bucka.
Thank you, Brenda. Do people hear me? Okay, great. My first item is regarding a report that was released last week by the U.S. Department of Education, and I think this reflects how skewed the spending is in this country and this state often. The report, and I'm going to summarize some of their findings, but initially it said over the past 3 decades, state and local expenditures on prisons and jails have increased more than 3 times as fast as spending on elementary and secondary education. While overall spending on education dwarfs that of corrections, it said expenditures on public pre-kindergarten through 12th grade education rose by 107% to $535 billion between 1979 and 2013, compared to an increase of 324% spike in correction spending to $71 billion. In Wisconsin, over the same period, expenditures on education rose 72% to $9.8 billion, while spending on corrections rose 351% to $1.4 billion. John King, who's the U.S. Secretary of Education, said this: Budgets reflect our values, and the trends revealed in this analysis are a reflection of our nation's priorities that should be revisited. For far too long, systems in this country have continued to perpetuate inequity. We need to invest more in prevention than in punishment, to invest more in schools, not prisons. They broke it down by state. In Wisconsin, Wisconsin ranks 32nd in terms of its increase in per pupil spending, which rose 69% to $11,186 over 3 decades. It had the 13th highest percentage increase in per capita spending on corrections, up 241% to $323. Wisconsin's higher education funding during the same period fell by 12% to $1.45 billion, while spending on incarceration rose 192% to $1.43 billion. And the report concludes, it said, investing in education, and particularly early childhood education, can reduce criminal activity by altering student behavior, improve access to jobs, and lower incarceration rates. Anyone have any questions on that report?
Well, quite frankly, what you put out there, they put out there, has been out there for a long time, but our legislators don't seem to pay attention to that, do they?
No, they don't. The second item, Kim, would you call up the attachment to my report so the public can see that? The Wisconsin Association of School Boards released 14 different questions that not only school board members and administrators, but the public should ask of legislators and legislative candidates. And these questions reflect the advocacy positions of WASB as directed by resolutions passed by the Delegate Assembly. And I might add, these are topics that the School Administrators Alliance are also in agreement, and they work very closely with the Wisconsin Association of School Boards. I'm just going to read, I'm not going to read all of them, but I'm just going to read a couple, I think, that kind of hone in on the key areas. Will you support eliminating state-imposed revenue limits on public school districts? If not, will you support aligning per pupil adjustments to revenue limits with inflation as they were in the past? Another one, the state budget is increasingly where major non-fiscal and often controversial education reform initiatives are enacted into law. Will you support barring non-fiscal policy from the state budget? Will you vote for a state budget that includes non-fiscal policy? Another one, will you support providing additional state funds to help local school districts that have disproportionately high numbers of low-income students, special education students, or English language learners to address the needs of these students? And actually, this goes back to a Wisconsin Supreme Court decision, Vincent v. Voigt, I think in 2001, which upheld the constitutionality of Wisconsin's funding formula, but said the funding formula must take these issues or these topics, these areas into consideration when funding school districts. That school districts with disproportionately higher numbers of low-income students, special education students, and English language learners, that they must receive additional funding, and the legislature has ignored that Supreme Court ruling. And finally, do you understand and support the present funding mechanism for private school vouchers and independent charter schools? If yes, how do you propose to continue to fund both the private and public schools out of stagnant or shrinking educational budgets? Questions? Chris?
I thought they were excellent questions overall when I read through it, really. very insightful questions and things people need to be thinking about, certainly our legislators. Is there any reason why we as a board could not send each of the representatives and legislators in our area those questions and ask for a written response?
I think we need to talk about that. I think that's a good idea. I think particularly there's competition in some of the key legislative districts in our area. So I think that's a good idea. I think we need to talk about that.
Besides where there's competition, I guess I'd like to see where people really are on these substantial questions and issues.
Good.
And when they have to put it in writing, then we know where they are. You know, and they can hold themselves accountable, and maybe other people can too.
Yeah, Michelle.
Would that be something then that the board would want us to post their responses, or how? I think that, or is it just for individual? I think we should think about what we would do with the response if the board asks for a response. I don't know.
I think we should make them public. I mean, they're public officials. They want our votes. I think we should hold their feet to the fire on how they support or don't support public education.
Is it appropriate for us to get into advocacy for individual candidates, however? I don't know that would be.
No, I don't think we've never.
I think you're dancing on that line right there.
Well, I think what you can do, I mean, obviously we don't endorse candidates, but I think what you can do, if there are two candidates for a assembly seat, you can post their answers unedited or on our website or wherever without any commentary. I mean, we've done that a lot when we've gotten involved in legislative issues.
Let me ask, is it just maybe a different approach? Has the WASB asked the candidates all these questions that they crafted, that maybe sometimes, you know, there are associations that will ask a series of questions? I'm just wondering if that would, I don't know. I'll look into that.
Yeah, I don't know if they would have the resources to do. I mean, all 99 assembly districts are up for re-election, and half of the 33 Senate districts are up for election.
I appreciate your thought, but my bias would be that it should be us with our people here. They represent us just as we represent.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, I just am trying to say that if that doesn't work, is there another way to get those questions answered?
Well, at a minimum, if it's possible, to put it on our website, the responses.
I can check with Dan Rossmiller to see what their plans are.
But I think Dr. Wagner's point is very well taken. So if we could work that, I'm not sure how, but we can look into figuring out.
Brenda?
And they mentioned in that article in the very early part, you know, potentially setting up a candidate forum, which would be another. Right. You know, my concern with sending these questions out is that we might not, you know, we might not get answers back. But if we have a candidate forum, then that would be an opportunity to ask these questions.
With all due respect, that is an answer.
Yeah,
and they
that's
definitely asking your question, and you can bring that out at another time.
Yeah.
And if we have a form, if there's a form, all that should be documented and written down verbatim, what people say.
Mm-hmm.
As my bias again is you have that in writing, so you can go back to at another time if need be to say, okay, where are you with this?
Mm-hmm.
You were here and now you're someplace else, you know, or you're someplace else and now you're here.
Yeah, and one of the questions that I liked on here was what is the vision for the future of public education? Because when you ask legislators that, they don't usually have a vision. They're just looking to create choice for parents, but without any long-term vision of where they're headed with it.
To that point, why I like it in writing, because it
forces them to...
It forces you to think a little bit.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Right.
And, you know, it wouldn't hurt for them to think about some of these issues and not just follow, you know, their leadership.
And there's a lot of questions there. I think we may want to hone in on maybe a half dozen or something. Asking somebody to respond in depth to 14 different questions might be a little much, but I think, just in my opinion, I think the ones that I highlighted, plus the vision, I think are some of those that we could.
And to your point, Ed, we don't have to take a stand in terms of who we endorse, but we can certainly inform people. And that's our responsibility, to let people know what these candidates are thinking.
And WASB does not endorse, so I mean, we would just follow their lead.
Well, not to muddy the waters, that doesn't mean you can't say with a particular response, as a board or somebody as an individual, I do not agree with their stance on this. Now, I'm not saying vote for them or not vote for them,
right,
but what's our position as a board? I mean, we're already in record. We don't like vouchers,
right,
for some very good reasons. Right. But so what does it matter if you agree with somebody's response or not agree with them? I mean, have that out there.
Yeah.
Would the board like Michelle and Brenda and I and perhaps others to pursue this a little bit further and then come back to the board probably next month with a recommendation?
Sure. I mean, we're happy to do that if the board wants that.
Yeah.
It's worth a shot.
Okay, good.
When are the primaries?
Yeah, that's the thing, there's a primaries in August, aren't there?
Primaries are
we
in
wouldn't be able to
August.
get the primaries in a couple of weeks.
Okay, yeah.
It's August 8th? 9th? Yeah. But I think we could hit the general election where it's not until November, obviously. All right, I wanted to talk a little bit about, next item is the WSB Summer Leadership Institute that I attended here Saturday, and actually Julie Jantz also attended. And I first wanted to give a shout out to Reva Shaw, who's our district equity coordinator. She did an hour-long presentation on engagement, equity, and excellence, and how our district equity team works to engage our students and parents. And she did an excellent job. The reaction, I think, of the people in the audience was very favorable, and I think she gave school board members and administrators there lots of good ideas to take back to their home districts. And I've told Reva that too. I've sent her an email and thanked her for representing our school district so well at this conference. And I wanted to bring up, and I know a little bit later, I think when Andy talks about the budget, he's going to be talking about some of the increases from the state. Is that real money, or is it just pass-through money, property tax relief? But we also had a session there on the kind of a legislative update, and also kind of a look ahead on budgeting and kind of what's ahead for public education. Dan Rossmiller, who's the chief WASB lobbyist, conducted this, and I just want to mention a couple of things. One of the things he mentioned is that there are 4 things that significantly affect state finances. Number 1 is that there have been significant reductions in the last couple of budgets in state taxes. There have been, in this budget, there are $17 billion in basically income and sales taxes coming in to support the budget. And in the last 5 years, the legislature has cut $3 billion from that in revenue because of various tax cuts. The second one is increased funding for Medicaid. Now 1 in 5 Wisconsin residents has received some sort of medical assistance, and those costs continue to increase rapidly. Another one is funding for transportation, and we talked about this last month, that Wisconsin no longer indexes its gas tax And it used to increase by CPI every year. The legislature eliminated that. The gas tax is now 30.9 cents. If it had been indexed, it would be 37 or 38 cents. In this budget, there's $561 million transferred from the general fund to fund transportation. And the governor has said that the only way that he would approve an increase in any taxes for transportation is if there was a reduction in taxes someplace else. So the warning signs is if the legislature and the governor take more money and spend more money on transportation. And the latest study showed that Wisconsin had some of the poorest roads in the entire country. So we are letting roads crumble, but to address that problem, if there are no increase in taxes and if you reduce borrowing, I think the danger sign is where does that money come from? And it perhaps could come from public education. And then the fourth item is that there is a major effort to further reduce property taxes, and I think Andy's going to talk about that. So when people see figures that Green Bay School District gets a lot more money, that doesn't go into the classroom. That's a pass-through to reduce property taxes, because this biennial budget, the 2 years of biennial, for the first time in Wisconsin history, had no increase in the revenue limit. That means we can't spend more per student, so any additional funds we get from the state are passed through to lower property taxes. So, and I think Andy's going to be talking about that a little bit later. And then finally, Dan Rossmiller talked about kind of two warning signs ahead. And number one is what some legislators are talking about, are calling the voucher funding gap. In this budget, the vouchers for K-8 students are $7,323, and for 9-12 students, 7,959 students. And the average statewide for public school students is $9,950. Some legislators say that voucher schools are being penalized because they spend less per student, and that voucher students should get the same amount of money that public school students get, that they're being penalized because they spend less. Well, it is obvious why they spend less, because they don't educate their more expensive students, particularly your special education students. We have some special ed students that cost anywhere from $60,000 to $100,000 each to educate. And our statistics show that voucher schools simply don't take those children. They primarily don't take children who don't speak any English. They don't have specialized programs like Minoka Hill. So when you see those figures, why they spend less because all they do is they take the students that cost less to educate. And in addition, they don't pay their staff a living wage. So those two things, so that is one thing that we need to watch out for, and I know WASB is, as we head into the next budget cycle, what's going to happen with the level of voucher funding.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't forget too that the voucher schools can, and some of them have kicked kids out and kept the money.
Right.
And then the public school didn't get it, so that would be a cost savings if you take all the money and for a kid and educate them for 1 month out of the 9.
Yeah, Brenda and Michelle and I were at a assembly education hearing 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. And Darian Driver, who's the superintendent of Milwaukee Public Schools, said that every year after the third Friday in September, where your funding is based on, you get your funding based on what students are sitting in your seats. Every year after the third Friday count, where the voucher schools get their money, Milwaukee Public Schools get several thousand students back. And then they already have the money. She said that happens every year.
Several thousand?
Yes, several thousand. Remember that?
I do, and I know that in conversation with our own staff who have come here from Milwaukee, they will affirm the fact that they had classrooms and classrooms filled after the third Friday count with students who had been sent back to the public schools to be served well.
And one final thing to watch out for is that I think, and people in Wisconsin aren't familiar with them, are education savings accounts. The Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, which is a right-leaning organization, is promoting them with legislators in Wisconsin. Currently, there are 5 states who have educational savings accounts: Arizona, Florida, Mississippi, Nevada, and Tennessee. And I wouldn't want to pattern our educational system after the education systems in any of those states. And I read the board last month an interview with Representative Jeremy Thiesfeld, who is the chair of the Assembly Education Committee, promoting educational savings accounts. He thinks that's the way to go. And basically, what they do is that the state would allocate each parent or family a set amount of money for their students, and then they can spend that money as they wish. So this is, as I say, education savings accounts allow taxpayer money to flow through the parent for child's education instead of directly to public or private schools. Now, so the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty is promoting this, and they're promoting them around the state. This is very concerning for public schools because it's another way to siphon money away from public schools and allow families or parents to spend the money elsewhere, which is taxpayer money. Michelle, any thoughts?
You know, as I think about all of this, I think one of the greatest concerns that I carry, and I know everyone sitting at this table joins me, and probably many of you folks out there, the equity and funding issue is very problematic. And I don't know if they talked about that whole notion of the funding formula. And when I look at that we are sitting below the state average in the funding formula from the state to begin with, and have absolutely now no way with the revenue cap limits to be able to even make any of that up, to even get us to the state average. I think that that's the piece that I look at as they're concerned about voucher funding that is equitable. I think it goes right back to the V versus Voigt and that whole piece, that we are not funding as we promised the families and students and community in the state of Wisconsin equitably. And that's the piece that when I talk with legislators, and I know everyone in this room when they talk with legislators talks about that too, because Green Bay, even if we were to the state average, would get significantly more money per student on average. And maybe Andy can just share what that gap is, but we're in a gap situation and continue the gap. It's like when you you can't catch up ever. You can't catch up unless the community goes out for referendum, if I'm understanding that accurately, and gets, operational dollars to be able to fill the gap. It's just wrong, in my opinion. And I don't know if that was any part of that discussion on Saturday, but the equity and funding issue in and of itself, and then add more to it with the disparate funding to different factions that aren't public education, make it even more magnified, I would offer.
Well, and one of the, I'm just going to pull that. I talked about, money coming to Green Bay that doesn't go into the classroom. And if I have that figure here, in this last budget, the legislature increased the levy credit, which again, after our budget passed, it goes directly as a reduction on your property taxes. The legislature increased, that right here, increased the levy credit from $897 million to just over $1 billion. And again, when the legislature talks about providing more funding to public schools, they're right in a sense that that money goes to the public schools, but it doesn't go to the classroom. It goes to reduce property taxes. So, and again, I think Andy's going to be talking about that. So, finally, I wanted to talk about there's a legislative study committee on school data chaired by Representative Jeremy Thiesfeld. They had their first meeting last week, and the scope of their study is directed to review all student data gathered by the Department of Public Instruction and the data security measures that protect student privacy. The committee will study whether the data is required by federal law, state statute, or administrative rule, and the purposes for which the data is utilized, and consider developing legislation to limit the types of student data collected by DPI to improve the security of that data. Now, there was a coverage of the first meeting in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, and I'm just going to read you a couple of highlights. Representative Thiesfeld said this: there has been growing concern about the amount of data collected on students and whether it is necessary. In our digital age, we need to find more effective ways to safeguard student data, which you certainly can't disagree with. But there was a caution issued by Representative David Bowen, who's a Democrat from Milwaukee, who was on that committee. And he brought up a couple of interesting points. He said he wants to ensure that officials aren't eliminating data that is essential to anyone who is trying to improve schools. As an example, he said he would want to make sure that data on after-school programs was not cut. Bowen said, quote, essentially school data is used to map how to better schools. I am making sure we are not using a mallet to knock things out, but a scalpel if we need to, and are not hindering those who need data in low-performing school. Bowen emphasized that the committee needs to make sure student data is not being used for the wrong reasons. He said he is concerned over voucher schools getting access to public school directories and advertising themselves to public school students. So I know WASB is keeping a close eye on this committee and their recommendations. They don't have an end date for that committee, but the purpose of legislative study committees is to make recommendations to the legislature concerning possible legislation and possible inclusion in the next state budget. So unless anyone has any questions, that concludes my report.
Great, thank you, Mike. Next is district events, and I just wanted to draw your attention to the handout that Sandy left at your table. This is a list of the engagement sessions that we have upcoming regarding the facilities master plan. And I mainly asked Sandy to put this out so that we make sure we have board members at each of as much of these as we can, especially the 4 engagement sessions at the high school. So it's not a matter of limiting who can come, it's just a matter of making sure we don't have any holes is my reason for wanting to do this. So when you have a chance, if you could just fill out which times you're available to go. If we have a lot of people going to farmers market, we might split that up a little bit, although we wouldn't necessarily have to. But anyway, if you could do that, that would be great. Are there any other? Is there questions about that, or any other things people want to announce?
Well, I think you've said it, the point being that 5 hours, you don't have to be there for 5 hours.
Correct.
And that's a long time to be on your feet.
Right.
It's a lot of visiting, but it's fun.
Well, I'm not sure about farmers market down here. It is just so jammed.
I think,
packed.
I think in the last opportunity that we had, I think there were a couple shifts.
Yeah.
We had a couple shifts that people kind of overlap. The bulk of the people seemed to come right after work till about 7.
You need time to get your own veggies, too.
Right. Do you have a designated spot for the Saturday market? You've got the Wednesday.
Not yet. We had one last year. It was a great spot. So
I don't think they give us that till a week before. Lori said, or 2 weeks before.
Okay.
This one's kind of by the bay. Food. It's good. People like you because you're by the food in there. So.
I want to be near the egg rolls.
The egg rolls.
All right, next we'll move to our system reports, and first is teaching and learning. That will be facilitated by Katie Maloney.
Thank you, Brenda. We had actually no discussion items last week, but we do have an action item for this week, and I will read the motion, and then John will come up and address any questions or concerns. I move that pursuant to Wisconsin Statute Section 120.12, paren 13, paren B, the list and description of the 2016-17 student academic standards in the areas of mathematics, science, reading and writing, geography, and history is presented, and with said academic standards constituting the board-adopted standards that are required under Wisconsin Statute Section 118.30, paren 1G, paren A, be approved.
Second.
Questions? For John? This is something we do annually.
Yep. No changes from last year, so it's the same document.
All right, we'll take a vote then. Sandy?
Maloney?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Dorf?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Blacka?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Carried 6-0. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
John.
So what's this easy?
Because we have short meetings.
That's right.
Easy, no questions.
And that concludes our report.
All right, thank you, Katie. Next, we'll move to organizational support. That will be facilitated by Chris Wagner.
Thank you. We have several recommendations. The first one is that the 2015-16 amended budget as presented be approved.
Second.
And you want to come up? Is there anything you'd like to point out in that budget amendment?
I appreciate the opportunity to bring this forward. This is a collective change of all of the previous amendments that had been made throughout the fiscal year. So it'll be brought forward for your approval tonight and then posted in our publication within the next 10 days.
Do you have a question? You're running.
I don't have it pulled up in front of me. Would you do me a favor later? Look back at Fund 50. It looked like something should have been a decrease or an increase. I can't remember which. In there, you had like two decreases or 2 increases in one.
Okay.
So I'm assuming it may be a typo or I'm not reading it right.
Okay.
There was one decrease in the
It's on the sheet with the numbers,
in the
spreadsheet.
benefits. Is that the colored sheet you were looking at?
Yeah, one of the spreadsheets.
Like that?
50.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Should have made a copy of it, but anyway, if you go back and at least look at that, I don't think there's an error with the numbers per se, just whether there should have been parentheses there or not.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I see. Anything else? All right, Sandy?
Blacka?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Dorf?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
Thank you.
Next recommendation is that the additional schools be included in the community eligibility provision as presented be approved.
Second.
Thank you. I did have a question. I didn't quite follow. First of all, I think we're all delighted that schools are being added, and we appreciate the help of the GBA and the state group allowing us to do that. I didn't quite. Washington's not being added, and help me understand the numbers there. Did I read it 4,000 to 5,000 more to add Washington? Was that per month, per the year, per student? I mean, what is that?
Great question. Is it okay if I take an opportunity to introduce you again?
Sure.
You brought forward Lynette at the last board meeting for approval of employment, so she's here to join us and worked pretty hard on this. Pushed her managers pretty hard because some of the limitations that we thought existed, we're working around a lot of that. So.
Yes. So thank you. As far as with us wanting to push Washington forward, we feel it would be beneficial for our students. And with the $4,000 to $5,000, that would have to be covered by the district. And what that would be for the year. Andrew, he did put some numbers down. He pushed his pencil with the number of students, with the number of the reimbursements, and that is the number that we came up with.
Yeah, the 62.5, including the multiplier, brings us up to be 100% funded. If we individually or even collectively, it's that running total drop below that, it's that number of meals that need to be covered. And so it's literally, what, 0.3%? 0.3%. 0.3%. So for 916 students at 180 days eating lunch at $3.47 reimbursement, we calculated to be between $4,000 and $5,000. It's not a bad investment.
Was that an item of information or was that a recommendation in your? I read it as being an item of information and a recommendation in terms of what we have here in front of us.
Correct.
For discussion, would it be your recommendation?
Yes.
But the motion does not reflect.
The motion doesn't reflect that. So it'd have to come back later.
Or the motion could be amended.
It could be amended.
Okay.
I would move to amend the motion to include Washington.
And I second that.
Thank you.
But Minoka Hill's in between there. And we're not recommending.
I was going to get to that as soon as we're done with the Washington amendment.
All right, well, we can vote on the Washington amendment first. Any questions before we do that?
Would you like to have a discussion?
Well, we can. He'll make another motion, I think, is what I'm hearing from him. Or at least ask the question. So no questions about Washington? We're just voting on adding Washington at this point for a cost of $4,000 to $5,000.
Well, the first
And that
vote
would
is
come
on
out
the
of-
amendment.
That's the only vote we're taking
That's
right
the
now,
only-
is on
yeah.
the amendment.
And that would come out of the food service fund?
No.
Or would it come out of our general fund?
District
Okay.
revenue.
All right. All right, Sadie?
Becker?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Dorf?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Lecca?
Aye.
Carried 6-0. And then do you want to ask about
Well, I guess
Minoka?
if, I was going to if someone didn't beat me to it. So, okay, so what about Minoka?
Well, with Minoka Hill, we are able to service them, to make them a CEP school. With Minoka Hill, we do have our population enrollment that comes in. It does fluctuate. So we will have 136 and then we'll drop to 88. Our number of meals are low that we do provide there, but we feel if we do offer them that we would be bringing the meals up. So we would like to move forward. That is the reason that we gave you all of the numbers and with the letter that we could have an open discussion regarding that.
And that actually slightly helps the numbers because this is a school that is over the 62.5 by itself.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. I move to amend the motion by adding Minoka Hill School to the list.
Second that.
I didn't quite hear what the dollar amount was for that, if any.
Because Minoka
Because
Hill
it's
is
over that
all
60 years then, okay.
Qualifies.
It actually possibly reduces it by a trivial amount.
A little bit. But it does.
Would you do me a favor for people that watch this? Just go back very briefly and indicate what we're talking about in terms of where this funding is coming from for this and what the 62% is that we're talking about.
For Washington?
The program,
For
just
the
program.
CEP. Okay, could you say that question again, please? I'm sorry.
We have people that watch this on TV.
Mhm.
I mean, some very faithfully, and because they're very interested. That I
Yes.
appreciate. And with this conversation, we're talking among ourselves, and we know what we're talking about. But you just 25 words or less explain what this particular fund is and how we're able to use it.
Yes, CEP is our community eligibility provision, and it is for our schools that have higher percentage of free and reduced, that are from 62.5% or higher. So we are able to provide free meals, breakfast and lunch to our students during the school day.
And the funding is?
The funding it's federal funded. It is not funded by any of the monies that are coming out of the school district.
With the exception of the additional $4,000 or $5,000
Correct.
that we may or may not have to pay for Washington.
For Washington, that is correct. Thank you.
That's okay.
Well, with that one, I think it's just a matter of time that we won't be paying it.
Right, but
I mean,
we're committed to
now.
pay it if we have to.
The notes here for Keller, Eisenhower, and Kennedy, what are the constraints that we're concerned about? I mean, it looks like we're moving ahead anyway, but it said that there's some issues that are getting in the way for us not to be able to start on 9/1. Just curious what those are.
Well, it would be possible we may not start, but after I did have my meeting with Lori Cathy, she did discuss moving forward, get them the list of the equipment that we'd like. We just have to give them one quote. We don't have to give them different quotes and they would go and bid on them. We give them the information that we want for the equipment and they would just move forward and purchase.
So it's about equipment just specifically for those three schools?
It's a little bit more severe equipment. We will be purchasing a fair amount at most of the sites. As you recall, this past year we invested in a delivery truck to help with the potential additional meals that we'd be transiting. But yeah, at those three sites, it's a little bit more significant equipment.
We have a motion on the floor, so I think if we could focus our questions on that, and we'll vote on that, and then ask more questions about the other. So are there any questions specifically about adding Noka?
No.
All right, Sandy?
Warren?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Bleka?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Dorf?
Aye.
Carried 6-0. And then you had a question or comment?
Just as a follow-up, in our discussion as we were talking about what those constraints were, one of our opportunities, because we feed some school students 3 meals a day, some of the food was coming in and filling the freezer or filling the fridges for the after-school programs. And so there was space issues. And that, I believe that was our discussion around Eisenhower in particular. Yeah, so to have more equipment was a piece, and then space was another piece.
But now you're confident we can do that by the 1st? Is that what I'm hearing?
We are hoping to do it by the 1st.
If you don't do it by the 1st, what are you talking about? A week or how much?
When I talked with the managers and where we want to move forward with our students with the CEP is we will do our best to make it work so we can start on the 1st with the trucks on the road. If they have to make multiple runs, that's what we are looking at in planning our day to get out to the schools with meals. And if it's contacting some of our purveyors that we work with right now to get some coolers in temporarily until we can get our main equipment in that we need, we would do that too. And then I would just have to work with the principals at the schools, see where we could put those until we can have some space. We know that there are some space at the schools, and we're hoping that we'll be able to adopt them for the program.
Okay.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? And then we have the main motion that we haven't voted on. So the main motion is what the recommended motion, including the 2 amendments that we just voted on. Any questions before we vote? Okay, Sandy?
Wagner.
Aye.
Maloney.
Aye.
Warren.
Aye.
Dorf.
Aye.
Bleka.
Aye.
Becker.
Aye.
Carried 6-0. Thank you.
I just want to thank Lynette for your work on this. She has a can-do attitude, and she and the team have worked tirelessly, and I know meeting with Lori, Kathy, being able to understand what the needs are and share that concern together, and working with Andy. So just a sincere appreciation and willingness to try to do whatever it takes to serve kids well. So thank you for that. Thank you all.
Go ahead. Thank you. We now have several recommendations which were discussed last week from the HR area. The first one is that the revisions to the employee handbook as presented be approved.
Second.
Second.
Any questions you have regarding the changes that were recommended?
All right, Sandy?
Bleka.
Aye.
Dorf.
Aye.
Becker.
Aye.
Warren.
Aye.
Maloney.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
The next recommendation is that the Background Investigation Bureau, LLC, be awarded the bid for conducting volunteer background checks as presented be approved.
Second.
Go ahead.
I just want to point out from our discussion last week that our district is blessed to have over 2,500 volunteers during the course of a year. And of course, we need to investigate everyone before we let them work with our students. But that said, it's definitely a blessing that we have that many people willing to give up their time for our kids.
Sandy?
Maloney.
Aye.
Warren.
Aye.
Bleka.
Aye.
Dorf.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Becker.
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
The recommendation is that the table of organization be modified to reflect the change of a 1.0 manager of facilities maintenance and safety / security, 12-month salary, range 63K to 73K plus, 2015 rate to a 1.0 manager of facilities maintenance and internal service systems, 12 months with no change in salary group, and that the associated job description as presented be approved.
Second.
This is again, as we said last week, due to the reorganization that Mike Stankel did with the new department after he had 2 retirements.
Sandy?
Becker.
Aye.
Bleka.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Dorf.
Aye.
Warren.
Aye.
Maloney.
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
Next is that the table of organization be modified to reflect the change of a 1.0 manager of trades and internal service systems, 12 months salary group 12, salary range 63K plus to 73K plus for the 2015-16 rate to a 1.0 manager of facilities operations, 12 months with no change in salary group, and that the associated job description as presented be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Maloney.
Aye.
Warren.
Aye.
Dorf.
Aye.
Becker.
Aye.
Bleka.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
Next recommendation is that the transfer of Luann O'Leary, Manager of Trades and Internal Services, 12 months to 1.0 Manager of Facilities Operation, 12 months with no change in salary as presented be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Bleka.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Becker.
Aye.
Maloney.
Aye.
Warren.
Aye.
Dorf.
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
Next
Is Luann
recommendation.
here?
Next.
Is Luann here?
She is not.
No, okay.
Next recommendation is that the table of organization be modified to reflect the change of a 1.0 school and community relations specialist, 12 months, salary group 16, salary range 43K plus to 51K plus, 2015-16 rate to a 1.0 school and community relations specialist, 12 months, salary group 15, salary range 51K plus to 59K plus, 2015-16 rate, and the associated job description as presented be approved.
Second.
Any questions? No. Sandy?
Becker.
Aye.
Maloney.
Aye.
Dorf.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Warren.
Aye.
Bleka.
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
Next is the salary adjustment for Kristen Rozek, School and Community Relations Specialist, 12 months at the district office, building from a salary of $48K, Group 16, 94th percentile, 2015 16-step year, to a salary of $57,353, Group 15, 96th percentile, 2016 17-step, effective July 21, 2016, as presented, be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Warren?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Blacka?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Dorf?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
Next is the transfer of Amy Kallionian.
Kallion.
Smiling.
A lot of vowels there. Elementary, thank you. Associate Principal, 11 months at Howe, Group 10, at a salary of $77,000 plus 90th percentile, 2016 17-step, to Elementary Associate Principal, 12 months Howe, Group 10, at a salary of $84,283, 90th percentile, 2016 17-step, effective July 1, 2016, as presented, be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Wagner?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Dorf?
Aye.
Blacka?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
Next is the transfer of Margaret.
Amy's here, yes.
I'm sorry. I missed that. Oh, back there. Okay. Next is the transfer of Margaret Fisher, Educator Effectiveness Implementation Coordinator, 10-month at the district office, building at a salary of $65K plus, Master's Step 22.5, to Interim Elementary Associate Principal, 11 months at Sullivan, at a salary of $73,828, Group 10, 86th percentile, 2016 17-step, effective August 1st, 2016, as presented, be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Blacka?
Aye.
Dorf?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
Peggy's here.
And Peggy is here.
Peggy's here. Oh, there's
as
Peggy.
well.
Hi.
Next is the transfer of Chris Collar, Building Paraprofessional, 10 months at Nicolay at hourly rate of $17.73, to Safety and Security Coordinator, 12 months at the district office at a salary of $60K plus, prorated $55K plus, Group 13, 90th percentile at 2016 17-step, effective August 2nd, 2016, as presented, be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Maloney?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Blacka?
Aye.
Dorf?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Carried 6-0. And Chris is also
Chris is
here.
here.
Congratulations.
And
they're-
entourage.
They're patient, and you're patient children.
Yeah, someone must have texted them because they're flying back into the room. It's good. Wasn't lost on me.
How are we getting slap happy? Okay, next motion is that the transfer of Diane Resch, Executive Secretary Assessment, 12-month at the district office, building at an hourly rate of $21.62, to Executive Assistant to the Associate Superintendent for Continuous Improvement, 12 months at district office at a salary of $27.13 per hour, effective July 19th, 2016, as presented, be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Becker?
Aye.
Blacka?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Dorf?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Carried 6-0. Diane also is here.
John's got good help. He's smiling too.
And lastly, the consent items as presented, be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Becker?
Aye.
Blacka?
Aye.
Dorf?
Aye.
Jant? Oh, I'm sorry. Maloney?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye. Carried 6-0. And we have no closed session, so I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.